Okay, everybody. Can I invite you to take a seat? We're going to wind up. Can I invite you to please end your sentence and please come and have a seat? I'm going to give our speakers just a minute to give us a flavor of the kind of ideas you had, the questions you had, just before we go into a closing. And we've got a final speaker then who will tell you about the last word. So I can invite you all to have a seat. We're going to invite our 7 night speakers to come up and have a seat. These conversations could go on for some time. Have a seat. Yep, we're going to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to invite each of the 7 night speakers to take just a moment and give us a sense of the conversation we had, some of the ideas that they got. So we start with our first speaker. That's you. You want to just take a minute? Please, could I have your attention? Where? Okay. Just quick.
1 minute?
Yep.
So, first of all, thanks for your questions. I have two very interesting questions. First, it was about the two other initiatives that we have at Espresso, which one is about recycling our couches and aluminium. Someone asked me about that. There will be an announcement here in IUCN about the initiative on the aluminium. We have already an initiative in aluminium, but it's a cross-sector initiative that we are launching here with Rio Tinto and other companies. We cannot say that, not yet. Also, we were asked about the carbon footprint, our footprint, so I gave the answer that we have also an initiative on that. And of course, interest, something to improve is to include specifically farmer women group in our program, which we have a lot of women farmers, and there is one here. She's with a hat. She's a coffee farmer from Colombia, Luz Marina. Hi. And I have some proposals of coffee from Zambia, which I'm very interested. And finally, consumer awareness, which is a struggle that we have because people say, "But why you're not talking about this whole thing?" Yeah, we're cautious at the same time. We're trying to get more awareness and learn how to do in a way that people get interested.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I can invite Rafi to tell us about your.
And I can go to my.
That's fine.
Board if I may.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have this one.
I wrote something for you, so. But anyway, you have written there.
Same one?
Same one.
Yes. That's okay.
Thank you very much for visiting the post and for making the contributions. My take from here is in terms of the strengths, this colleague from WWF, it's gratifying, that's why I put it up here to hear that the standard we have is best of the available standards in terms of sustainability, and we go on ahead here. There was also comment about the standard is addressing the issue of water conservation and quality somewhat as well. But it was generally about the issue of water and where it had strengths. Strong expertise in sustainable practices for coffee agriculture was another comment that was contributed. Quite a bit of feedback on where we can do better, and we are most grateful for that input. One is consumer awareness in Europe. Our awareness has grown quite a lot in the last few years. Companies' own awareness campaigns reflect that, but we are aware that the more and better we are known, better the producers will be able to have access to the market, better prices they will get. So it is in our collective interest that we do better and more branding of our work there. Also, a colleague from Sri Lanka came and asked a question which led me to think that we need to do more work for increasing awareness of what we do in terms of biodiversity locally. Rainforest Alliance, because we are a small group of people, 300-person organization working in 100 countries. We do a lot through partners. People know the partners in locally better than us, but and very well so, but I think we need to do a bit more there. The issue of, in tea in particular, the question is about the large amount of wood that is consumed in seasoning the tree, the drying of the tea leaves, and how those requirements are met, and what are we doing there, and if there are improvements that we can possibly make there. The question of cost came up as well. How do we work with small farmers? And I explained the group standard we have for small farmers and how the costs are then distributed to make it more affordable for them. But we take that suggestion as well. There was also a comment about more transparency. Like, if I go to your website, can I see where the certified farm is, and can I see the audit report, what it was? There are a question of like privacy of information as well. We don't can't put information which will put the producer into disadvantage for participating in sustainability. So there is kind of a trade-off, but we take that comment and we will certainly take it back to the group. And then also the question about climate module. It is a strength that the standard has because it's not only about biodiversity, but it's now integrating other elements of the environment, including the climate. And the question was how far this climate module is being implemented and should be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'll go next to Holly.
Okay, just to start by saying that I think that I might have drawn the one downside of Ignite, which is that my group wanted to know a whole lot about the specifics. So rather than wanting to talk about the strengths and improvements and whatever, it's more around tell me more about it so I can know about it. But some of the things that came out. Obviously, people feeling that it's important to make certain that it has broad applicability and that it would work in other sectors. And that's, if people missed that in my talk, that's basically where we're going next. We're taking this outside of our company, can't be owned by a company, and it's going to go into a bigger consortium where we will work on those very questions about the applicability in other sectors and other regions. So we think that's massively important. The whole topic of are we involving the financial people, the financial
accounting standard board.
Yeah, the accounting standard board or others. Truth is, we have a lot of accountants involved, and because we believe this is going to become a part of an accounting standard. So there are a lot of people involved in that, and we take that as something we think is very, very important. If you're going to do something like an EP&L, your CFOs should be involved from the start. That's for sure. This is about the business and running the business. There were a lot of questions around, are we going to do something on the social side? And the answer to that is we're in the process of feasibility right now. We're doing it a very different way, and we're not making any statement about what we're going to do. We're just doing a deep feasibility study from our corporate side. The biggest strength was seen to be that it seems to be probably one of the strongest ways to internalize externalities that's out there right now and available to anyone. And that's a big part of the reason why we did it, so it might be succeeding at that. I think other than that, basically people clearly want to know what impact is it going to have on our consumers. Have we taken that into account? I mean, we would have been probably quite foolish to have not thought that it might have an impact on our business. But nonetheless, we feel that the standards are going to follow us fairly quickly. So we think it's in everybody's best interest, just get on here, because if it starts getting regulated and you haven't started doing this, you're going to be behind the wave instead of in front of it. So anyway, it was very challenging. I appreciate everybody that came to my group. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's go to Matthias now.
Thank you. We had a more general discussion about the tourism industry, so yes, despite this was very interesting. But just a few points that came up were same as previously mentioned, was certainly consumer awareness. How can we make sure that consumers that are somehow expecting sustainable travel products are really finding them in the brochures? So creating more consumer awareness was one issue. Then there was a discussion about credibility of an industry-driven program. So how can we ensure that the program we described as Travel Life is a credible system? And here I just can say that it has been aligned to the GSTC, the Global Sustainable Tourism Criteria standards. Amongst that, also IUCN has been involved in the criteria review. So I would say it is a credible standard, not only because IUCN has been involved, but just want to say, I mean, it's important that we also have a really good multi-stakeholder approach, also covering all the social aspects of tourism. So another question or point we discussed was also the stakeholder involvement at the destination level. How do we try to involve stakeholders at the destination? How can we make sure that we cover the material issues at the destination level wherever we send our consumers to? So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So let me go to Dana here.
So the questions and comments and inputs for the Fair Wild standard were really around the area of the range of its applications in different types of situations, or how would you apply the standard in certain circumstances. And so I think one of the things that we were trying to address when we developed the standard was situations where there are indigenous rights to resources, indigenous access rights, indigenous knowledge situations, because this is really an issue for certainly for medicinal plants and for many wild collective plants. So one of the strengths of the standard is that those elements are addressed in the principles, criteria, and indicators, and in the sort of auditing scheme for how an operation would against which a situation or a collection operation would be audited. So the standard does consider custody and use, and I think another strength of the Fair Wild standard is how directly it is linked to the practices being used by harvesters. So it's not a scheme that has been developed, somewhere out here, but actually addresses the existing collection practice and works to make it more sustainable if necessary. Some of the improvements, we certainly have a problem with capacity. I think Fair Wild could compete with Rainforest Alliance for a small operation. We are very thin on the ground, and a lot of the work is done by the volunteer board and committees. So that is a real challenge for us, and in order to address scaling up, the kind of extension we need to do with guidance and training requires scaling up. And I think a very useful comment is that we are really trying to compete perhaps at a higher, compete for corporate partners with other kinds of schemes where we might be better placed to be working with, say, community forest management operations that better enable the collectors themselves to develop their own sustainability system that they can better market rather than enabling corporations to access sustainable harvest of material.
Thank you very much. So what about here? Juan, say a couple of words about your conversations.
Yeah, I'm a little bit in the same spot as Holly. I had to explain a lot. I guess one of the biggest concerns or the most often heard question was around the motivation. What is the motivation to actually take some land out of production and do something else with it? And I tried to explain what the reason is. It is about really adding value on both sides. And if you can't show that you increase the productivity on the field overall, so the productivity on your land, it's very difficult to actually show the benefit case. You have to do that, and that's where we do our business. That's the other question that I got. Where do you make the money if you do that? We do the money on the field, there's no doubt. We just get more customer loyalty and other benefits if we include those margins. So with that, I actually covered also the strength of the program. It actually works because it adds value and you are able to actually show the value it is. The weakness or the improvements that are probably necessary is to actually make it more multifunctional. We had the discussion around what are the right crops in order to apply it. And if you just focus on pollination, for example, then the crops that really get most benefit out of it are those that need pollination. So other benefits like water retention, like runoff protection, and other things that might be helpful for the farm, if they are built into the concept, then it becomes more valuable, and that's an improvement that we should look for.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. And so Marion, last, the conversation of FSC.
Yeah, no surprise, we were talking more about the details of FSCs and about wider concepts of strengths or weaknesses. And what I learned is that from discussing these kind of details, what I learned is that we have to promote much better how public and how transparent the FSC system is. We are fully based on stakeholder commitment and kind of collaboration. Before we start any forest certification, the auditors, the certification body has to invite for public consultations, asking the people, what do you think about the forest management in your neighborhood? And they invite labor unions, and they invite WWF and BirdLife and whoever. And it's a big job for certification bodies to find out who are the stakeholders. So the stakeholders are invited before the certification decision is made. And if something is going, if a new stakeholder finds that something is going wrong, he can read online the certification reports. If you know that there's a forest certified in your neighborhood or somewhere else, or you find that big company is certified, you want to learn about it, you can go online and read the certification report and the certification body required from the company to improve, to get the FSC certificate. And we also have to promote that we have a very rigorous accreditation and dispute resolution system, and that we have had in the past a number of cases where we suspended and finally terminated certification bodies as well as certificate holders for lifetime. On the other hand, it's difficult, it's strange to point out these negative things. The majority of FSC certification is, thanks to the quality of the certification bodies, good, and the vast majority of the 1,100 forest management certificates is okay. And if I estimate where we had real problems with forest management certification and quality of certification decisions or of the certification bodies, I would say in the 20 years for the 1,100 certificates, there were 15 serious cases. But this is something we obviously have to make more public.
Okay.
There could be more cases, but they
There
are
could
not
be more,
concrete.
but then we need
They are
you
not
to
concrete.
report to us,
Yeah.
and then we find out.
Great. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm going to hand over the microphone now to Julia to take us into our closing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Well, as the manager of the session, the owner of the session, first of all, I would like to thank Gillian for managing it so well. Thank you very much. I'm glad I trusted your initial advice. The purpose of this was really to show the variety of examples, to illustrate some, solutions. And I think on purpose we created this approach where you can actually have personal conversations with the owner of the story. And it's fine if the questions were not specific on that, because that was also, it was part of the design to allow you to have more, very detailed conversations, and that maybe you and the owner